So here's the thing about Speedwalker, right? Seattle's greatest superhero of the early 1990s and late 1980s. Yes. He follows regulation speed walking rules.
Is that right?
Heel toe, always making contact with the ground.
Good for him.
He's not a runner. He's a speed walker.
He's not a stalker or a bloater either. He is a speed walker.
And there'll be a rat king like the boss, but it's the high five and white guys all stuck together.
A lot of people were upset with me for shit talking Mariners fans, and it was like, what did the Mariners ever do to you, right? Last week. First of all, you know what you did. Secondly,
I don't know what you did.
The reason that I said it was to get the reaction that I got, which is a bunch of people being like, why am I so persecuted?
What you folks need to remember is that Josh is a Mets fan.
That's right.
And even when they're winning, they're losing. He has nothing else going for him. He needs to make fun of someone. And who is the easiest target? Seattle fans.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the Worst of All Possible Worlds, the first and only podcast for Seattle fans. I am the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Bryans.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. Let's go Mets, baby!
We do actually have a lot of listeners in Seattle. I don't know.
We're about to lose all of them because we are talking once again about The Last of Us Part 2.
Yes, that holy text that everybody from Seattle loves.
It's their hometown.
They can't get enough of it.
And we're halfway through the game, so it's pure spoilers from here on out.
But we do not open this second part of The Last of Us Part 2 in Seattle or Washington at all. In fact, we are back in the great state of Utah. We find a young Abby Anderson who is making her way through a park. She's trying to reach her father, but has to climb over a bathroom to get there.
Yes, now Abby, we will remember, of course, is the character who, in Part 1, brutally murdered Joel with a 5-iron, but
she's
now,
very muscular. She's bad.
But
she's
not
a bad
anymore.
Person. Oh,
her
no.
childhood self is young, naive, full of vim and vigor.
Her fully physics modeled braid is much shorter.
Yep.
And much less distracting.
She's substantially less muscular.
Yes.
Yes, she is. This is 4 years ago, I believe, is what it says. Yes.
Yeah, 4 years.
So she's still just like, a teenage kid. And she has to move a dumpster in the traditional Last of Us style in order to get over this bathroom. And on that dumpster, she finds a state quarter. Lads, would you like to take this away here? Because you have some very strong thoughts about this
I
state
do have
quarter.
a very strong thought. To establish just, first of all, 1978?
Yeah, no, so
what are you doing?
This is fucked, folks. The state quarters, famously, sort of a turn of the millennium thing. It was very exciting. They were
started in 1999.
That's
we
right.
got through all of the states. By 2008, Kermit the Frog went on TV with George Washington crossing the Delaware and said that every 10 weeks we're going to make a new state quarter. And it all started, of course, with the state that we all pretend exists, which is Delaware.
The great state of
And
Delaware,
everyone is
the
like, oh,
first
cool, a quarter with Paul Revere on it. And no, it's not Paul Revere, it's Caesar Rodney.
Yeah.
For everyone who loves the musical 1776.
Wait, so do any of you have like a favorite state quarter? Because I was never able to collect all of them.
Oh, I got them all. Yeah. I loved Hawaii's because it was, I love Hawaii's the best. Yeah.
I think actually my favorite is one of the first ones. It's Connecticut because it's got that tree and it just looks really cool. I have to say, jeers to the New Mexico state quarter. It's boring. It's just the Zia Sun and the state of New Mexico. And that's it, which is a damn sight better than what it is in this game, which is a covered wagon crossing an abstract rendition of the Rocky Mountains.
Part of the problem with a lot of the state quarters is that rather than just going with one really cool, striking design, they went with a number of different designs, which they all sort of shoved on the quarter. One really good one is Wyoming. Wyoming actually has the famous like bucking bronco guy that's on all of the Wyoming shit. Michigan's is actually just Michigan. It's just a picture of the state itself.
There's a lot of like design by committee. I remember when it came to New Mexico, like there was a whole page in like the Albuquerque Journal of potential design ideas. The good ones, I think, got in early because everyone's like, we don't know what this is. And then you're waiting for like a decade to get your state. Everyone's like, we want this to be representative of the whole thing. And it's like, yep, you just put the state on there. Great. What really matters here is that this game decides to make fake state quarters.
Yes.
Right? And for some reason, it gives you a Virginia quarter. This is the first quarter you find from 1978.
Right.
Roughly 21 years before we began doing state quarters and 2 years after we did do an interesting quarter, the bicentennial.
That's right.
Of course. Yes.
But why? Why did they do this?
All of the other quarters are from the 2000s. All of them. This is the one that's 1978, and I think it's just because Neil Druckmann or Hallie Gross or somebody like wrote this line, didn't actually know the details. They were not a numismatist like Abby is supposed to be.
Or like you and I, Brian.
Well, I don't know about you, Josh. You didn't get all of the state quarters.
How about you suck my fucking dick?
Well, how about you go and get all 50 state quarters, Borman?
Yeah.
So it's infuriating, and it just feels like it was written and voiced, and so they just had to stick with it, and then they just shuffled along for the rest of them. But like, I think what they should have done is, because there are even a couple of machines like this in the game, you can't use them, but they do exist as assets. They should have been crushed pennies. They should have been crushed souvenir pennies, and that would have been more interesting than these absolute bullshit fake quarters that do not exist in real life.
I have let you both rant about this for a while now, and I just gotta say, this does not bother me at all.
Yeah, well, that says more about you than it does about me, AJ.
You're goddamn right, Brian.
I imagine this is just an alternate universe like that in Watchmen, where Nixon just won 3 times, right? And then he decided to
So this is the Watchmen universe. The Last of Us takes place in the Watchmen universe.
It doesn't have to, but it's like something like that. It's an alternate history where they just did the state quarters earlier, and they have different media.
They did one state quarter earlier, the state of Virginia,
yeah, exactly.
and they waited another 22 years to do the other ones.
Do you collect 50 of them in the game? Do you collect one for every single state?
No,
so
I
there
don't
you
know
go.
what
Maybe
the
there's a
number
lot
is.
we just don't know in
50.
between.
It's just like,
again, this is such a minor point, but I do love that it makes you both so angry, because I'm just like, yeah, it's a fun thing to collect. Boopy doopy doop.
Well, if you're gonna do it, at least make a cool design on the back of that quarter. Most of these are duds. Sorry. They're duds. The New Mexico quarter is somehow worse than the real New Mexico quarter. You fucked it.
I just imagine that maybe a lot of these were made in the final days of crunch, and they're like, I don't know, a covered wagon.
Then
let's just
don't do it. Just don't.
I mean,
leave it be.
Look.
Do less.
I think we can all agree that the quarters are the most offensive thing about this entire
Yes,
game.
yes.
I think that's something we
are all in agreement on that.
Anyway, Abby's dad is the doctor that Joel killed in the first game.
Yeah,
that is what we reveal. We see him saving a zebra. It's like save the cat, but he saves the zebra instead. Like, it really sort of puts its finger on the scale to like get you to like this guy.
They're also
and it's like,
trying so fucking hard to kind of do a parallel construction thing where it's like, wow, Abby has a crush on Owen, and her dad has noticed this fact.
Yeah.
Much like how Joel thought that Ellie had a crush on Jesse.
Yeah.
Wow, they're so similar.
Right, but Abby's dad is a better dad because he's right? Because he actually knows his daughter better than Joel knows Ellie, because Joel does not even clock that Ellie is gay at any point, right?
But they need the dad to be good. They after all the ambiguity at the end of the first game as to whether the science experiment was going to work or not, like it's going to kill Ellie either way, but is it actually going to create a cure? They really want you to think, well, this guy is good. The mass shooting you did in the hospital was bad.
Right.
They actually construct the cutscenes around this really carefully so that you can't look off to the side of the room, because in the original game, you also have the option of killing the nurses.
Oh.
You can either shoot the dad or stab him with the scalpel. And so it's open to all of those possibilities by just keeping the camera focused on one side of the room.
The other thing that I think is important about the dad here is that he is a better dad. That much is definitely true. He's also a bit careless, right? We see this. We see that he just kind of runs on ahead without regard for the potential danger of the situation.
There's a whole scene with Marlene, who we will remember is Ellie's adopted mother, basically, who is never talked about in this game, despite Joel killing her in cold blood. And it makes the entire plot of this game so much harder to swallow because Ellie never talks about her.
Yeah, because Ellie, we do have a scene where Ellie confronts Joel. We have a couple of scenes where Ellie confronts Joel and she just doesn't mention Marlene. It's odd.
So Abby's dad is trying to convince Marlene that she has to go through with the surgery, right? That they have to like take this thing out so they can save all mankind. And Marlene's like, well, what if Ellie were your daughter, right? And Abby overhears this and comes in and offers her opinion on the situation.
If it was me, I'd want you to do the surgery.
Ellie and Abby are supposed to be exact parallels. So to me, this telegraphs that Ellie would have wanted this too, right? It's not something we find out until later that she did want to go through with the surgery.
Right. Well, because they could have asked her. There is such a concept in medicine, even if we're going into apocalyptic, abhorrent behavior like this, there is such an idea as consent.
Yeah, informed consent is kind of important in medicine.
So yeah,
generally.
They could have asked the 14-year-old girl if she wanted to die.
But they didn't. And again, it makes it so like Joel was actually put into kind of an impossible position here, right?
Yeah.
So the choice of whether what he did was good or bad is kind of irrelevant because both parties were acting in bad faith because no one was talking to Ellie about it.
I just think that the game finds this whole dramatic question a lot more interesting than it really is.
Yeah.
That's just where I'm at. Is like it's this very, to me, contrived moral dilemma that has a lot of very clear holes in it. And it just wasn't explored as comprehensively as it could have been. Mm-hmm. But now we're really pushing on the empathy button because it wants us to have a feeling. And I just don't. I don't have a feeling about any of this. I don't have a feeling about Abby's soon doomed father. I don't have a feeling about the ethics of this cure. I just don't care. I really don't.
I think where they could have gone another direction, because so much of this game is about just like making it as messy as possible. We should have seen her father carrying out the weird experiments on like freshly infected people or caged up zombocoms. And we could have just like seen the uglier side of him as well as the guy who saved a new mother zebra.
Abby runs down the hallway in the next scene and into the surgery and finds her dad dead. And we get this, frankly, harrowing performance from Laura Bailey here.
Is he still in the fucking building?
Is it?
Abby.
No!
Abby, don't look.
Dad! Dad! No! No!
Yeah, so this is now your second time in this game running down that specific hallway into that specific room. It is your third time total if you have played the first game.
Right.
And it'll also not be your last. You're going to be running down this hallway a few more times. This and Ellie playing guitar are designed to be the sort of connective tissue that strings different moments in time together.
And I will say that does work for me narratively and ludically, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah.
There's something about this not just being a cutscene that every time you are always performing the same task, which is running all the way down this hallway through these other rooms to eventually get to the scene of the crime.
My first time playing this game, she runs down the hallway. We see the dad dead.
Dad.
We jump forward in time to Abby getting her revenge, killing Joel with the golf club. And we get the scene that we didn't get to hear before because we were in Ellie's head.
Right.
And it's just Abby being like, we're done here.
Yeah, we're done. We're not killing anyone else. This is a very specific mission. This was not a mission of a senseless carnage. It was us going to get this one guy. He was handed to us on a platter like we never could have expected, and we're going to go home now.
And so, great. We have all this context for Abby. We know about her dead dad. We're going to get right back to that boss battle. And then the screen goes black, and then the word Seattle pops up, and then day one, and my brain went, oh my God.
Yeah, I thought this was so clever.
Wait, AJ, were you surprised by this?
I was. My first time playing it,
Were you clean and nude and freshly birthed into the world when you played this game?
Yeah, I played it right when it came out, so I had no idea. I thought, And then even then my brain was like, okay, so we're going to play like one day with her and then we'll cut back to the boss battle.
Even though you had played as her before,
yes,
it had kind of conditioned you to the idea that you could play as her. You really thought this was going to be like another small scene like the previous ones.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we cut back, and because again, I didn't think it was all going to be contained within those 3 days. I thought we'd be like cutting back to Jackson or something. Like I had no idea where the game was going. So to then reset the clock, I'm just like, I started to get on the game's wavelength. I'm like, oh, this is actually very, very clever.
And this is where the game is at its strongest, is if it's surprising you. And if you know, because you're playing this game 5 years later, that this is the entire core premise of the game is playing from these two different perspectives. Here we go. I mean, it's got an intensity to it.
I knew, and I was still really pleased by the way that this was handled. I just thought it was so clever because the feeling that you have when you see that Seattle pop up first, it's like, okay, we're going to be back now on day 3, or it's going to be, I don't know, day 4.
Before. Maybe my
0.
thought was like, maybe we're jumping before Joel was killed and we see what builds up to it.
Exactly. We're back to the beginning on the other side of things. And now we're with Abby, parallel now to the events of Ellie's story. And we're going to see what they look like from Abby's perspective.
We're going to see her perspective on all of the same things that Ellie was doing these 3 days.
Yes. Very interconnected. And so Abby awakens from this nightmare that she's had of like her past, basically. And it's important to note that she's had these nightmares since she saw her dad dead, right? But they haven't gone away since she killed Joel. Like, revenge did not bring Abby peace, but it does seem to kind of help.
It does seem like it actually brought a fair bit of peace, just not enough to get rid of the PTSD.
It brought her a little closure, at least. It's
yeah.
just that the act itself was so violent that it obviously has those, lasting,
lingering effects.
And we
traumatic
see
effects.
her sleeping in kind of a makeshift library because her roommate Manny had their shared room to himself to fuck a scientist last night.
But we're in Lumen Field, I think.
Yeah, it's a football field.
Home of the Seahawks and of course Kier.
I want to say, while we were playing this, Josh was like, because I was there when Josh was playing this section. I was at Josh's apartment. Josh was like, Seattle doesn't have a football team. Sincerely. Had totally forgotten.
Again.
I forgot.
Keeping score. We lost him again.
Sorry. Listen.
This is going to be a real push and pull this whole episode.
When Josh makes fun of you, it's because he has to be reminded that you exist in the first place. It's very, I'm worried about you. I don't care about you at all. I don't think about you at all.
Look, here's what I'll say, right? Seattle fans, at least the Russell Wilson experiment is over.
Now that Coach Kennedy has brought prayer back into the schools in the greater Seattle area.
That's right.
So you do another one of these like Naughty Dog walk and talk press tours, right?
Yeah.
You go through the cafeteria.
These are always fun. They show off. You see all of the character models that are populating one single space.
You
bunch
can
of
follow
children,
just one
classrooms.
of them like walking around. Like it's really
There's
fun.
someone stacking chairs and they actually make the chairs stackable. And in the cafeteria, you run into Jordan. Remember Jordan?
No.
He's the guy whose face got scarred by Ellie. Not the people who scar their faces on purpose. Different guy with a scarred face. He's playing a PS Vita. This is a different PS Vita. You even saw him briefly in the part when you re-flashed into killing Joel. You saw him then with his face fucked up being like, she fucked up my face, I'm gonna shoot her. And you still don't remember because that's just the way this game works for some reason.
Yep.
And so you talk to him for a little bit and he's like, oh yeah, I'm off to the school. We're gonna clean up and then we're bugging out of that place. And if you remember from Ellie's chapter, which you don't.
I don't.
He was at the school when Ellie's horse blew up. And so he's there. And he's the one who is interrogating you, which means no one knows Ellie was there. They just got lucky and she happened to be in the same place as that guy. So that was all complete coincidence. This guy's about to die in a couple hours for no reason. And you will never know. You will never know that he died. Abby never knows that he died. This is the first of many of these.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, right? Hallie Gross, who is the co-writer on this game, graduated from NYU with a degree in dramaturgy. And a lot of this game feels like there was very careful dramaturgy done, but then there was no writing to back up that dramaturgy. It's like, yes, it is very cool that you see the guy you kill in the school in the cafeteria. It is very cool that you get to have conversations with Nora, who you beat to death with a pipe in the first game. It is, I will say, perhaps funny that you do get to meet the dog that you stab.
It's very, very funny.
You need to have the writing to make us care about these things. You can't just like put up the signpost and be like, dramaturgy done. You have to do the work to get us to care about these people, because I don't care about Jordan.
With Jordan, we first hear the wolf mantra as well, which is may your survival be long, and then the response to that is, and may your death be swift. Right? In a zombie apocalypse world, I guess that's the best that you can hope for. So you go up to Abby's room. She and Manny have taken a couple of burritos from the cafeteria. You've done some like shooting lessons. You have different weapons. You have better rifles, but no knives. And you go up to the room, and it's like it's like the VIP box for watching the Seahawks, right? It's what you get to do if you're president of Nintendo of America, Doug Bowser.
You can find Doug Bowser's corpse in the corner of the room.
And Manny, it turns out, is a photographer who has a whole darkroom with chemicals set up where he can develop pictures the traditional way, which you can do 20 some years after the apocalypse. You can't use a Polaroid and expect it to actually work 20 some years after its manufacturing date.
Get their asses, Brian.
Hey, Brian, I just took a Polaroid of this state quarter from 1978.
You meet up again with Manny and Mel, who is pregnant, if you did not know this.
I'm sorry, what's Mel?
Mel's pregnant.
You're all being sent out to do your regular patrols. It's just like what Jackson does, but in Seattle.
And not against infected, right?
Well,
this
maybe.
one, I mean, kind of, yeah, but also against the Seraphites, right?
Right. You are maintaining your perimeter.
But before you actually get out of the big bunker, basically, the stadium that has become bunker, you get the opportunity to meet some dogs. They're so cute. You can throw a tennis ball and they'll go and catch it. And let me tell you, I was playing this part and Brian was over watching me play. When that fucking dog showed up, I think I laughed for like 30 solid seconds. I was like, you cannot be fucking serious.
That first dog, Josh just sees all the dogs in the cages and he's just like, oh, these are all the dogs that you kill. And I was like, but wait. And the door opens up and you see Alice, the German Shepherd puppy. And I go, hey, it's that dog.
So you weren't affected by this. You were not like, oh no, I feel so bad that I've killed this cute little puppy.
Of course I fucking wasn't. It was so funny.
Because you already killed a puppy. Like, that already feels weird and bad for most people in the audience of the game, that it's like, by the way, the puppy was also loved. Like, sure. Yeah. No, I get it.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
No, it not only did it not work for me, it had the exact opposite of its intended effect.
This, folks, is referred to as bathos with a B. So we have our dog, we have our pregnant, we have our Manny, and boy, he loves to fuck. He has like fuck dens in Seattle, just in like abandoned buildings
and area codes, dude.
And it's just one of those things where it's just like that's just such lazy writing. And I know this is a large cast of people, but in a world where you can't glom onto interests other than violence, the only thing you can fall back on are these stereotypes.
Okay,
right?
well, AJ, what if I told you that he has a dad? What about that shit?
He does have a dad.
What if
I love that he has this man bun, and one of the big Gamergate things that those guys were harping on was that they thought that Manny was an author stand-in for Neil Druckmann because he has similar hair.
These people are just... we're going to talk a lot more about the gamers later, by the way, because I think that one of the things that's so interesting to me about this game is the absolute distance between the way that it was received negatively and like for what reasons versus the reasons that this game should be received negatively.
And so we finally get out of the stadium. You're immediately ambushed by Seraphites.
Yep.
Right?
You get a Metal Gear Solid 4 style run and gun sequence where you're just in the vehicle and you're shooting wildly. And it's all just kind of scripted.
And then you're in the Home Depot.
Yep.
Yeah, you land up in just a regular ass Home Depot and you do some fighting as Abby for the first time. And you have fought as her before back in Jackson, but not with the full arsenal of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And she does play very different to Ellie. So I want to take a moment to talk about how she feels to play and how it compares to Ellie and what are your thoughts on that?
Robust Abby versus beginning of the game Abby. You're going to get a different set of upgrades to her as well. Like, she has different abilities, different things that she crafts, all with the same materials. For some of it, she plays like Joel.
A little
she
bit.
has shivs again, which are disposable knives that you use to kill clickers. For some reason, it doesn't really make sense to introduce shivs halfway through the game. It makes sense when you start with them and then switch to a knife in the first game. But it's kind of weird here, and I had to remember, oh yeah, this was in game 1.
Yeah, she's more of a brawler. That's
Yes.
really the big thing. The fact that she can just punch the shit out of zombies.
You can choke them out as well.
Not the clickers, obviously, because again, those guys are a one-hit kill unless you manage to get them with a shiv.
Right.
I think she's pretty fun to play as.
Yeah.
I would say that for my own personal play style, Abby is not a character that I enjoy playing as much as Ellie.
Yeah.
Up until you get the crossbow. At which point I think Abby becomes viable from a stealth perspective.
She's less stealthy at first because her kills take longer. Her kills from behind if you don't have a shiv. She has this like brawler melee attack thing that I almost never used.
Momentum.
If you hit an enemy with either character, right, you hit them. But if you like throw a bottle at them first to stun them and then you hit them, you take them out. And with Abby, if you do that, it sets you on like a combo mode where you can then one hit punch the next enemy and then the next one. And it just never really works out for me.
Given too that, weapons still wear down, even in this mode, right? It just didn't feel cohesive as a system.
Yeah.
Right. I think as long as you have a bunch of shivs, because my big problem was that I would get into huge brouhahas with large groups of zombies, but then there'd be infected, but then there'd be a clicker that would just hop out of nowhere and I'd get one hit killed. Yeah. So I didn't I shied away from it because I was just getting killed a lot. But you make your way through the Home Depot.
As we talk about how hard it is to find like an exit in an area, the Home Depot is one of the worst because there are so many things that look like you're supposed to climb them, but you're only supposed to climb one.
And you can speak to this, Brian. Yeah. I had tremendous difficulty finding the exit.
But you
in Home
probably
Depot.
did not have more trouble than me. Like, because I was watching you play and I was like, yep, this is exactly what I did.
You make your way and eventually find yourself at the forward base, which is the main sort of military base of the WLF. And we get some dialogue about the truce that has been established between the wolves and the Seraphites in this section.
God, remember when we could pass through this area without getting jumped by scars? Getting nostalgic about the truce? Easier days, huh?
Too easy. We let our guard down, and they strung up an entire squad.
That was in retaliation to us shooting those kids.
Okay, but those kids attacked our guys. What would you do?
I don't know, not riddle them with bullets?
I'd rather save our people.
Manny, they're kids. It's not their fault. Not our fault either. Those deaths are on them. Okay.
Yeah, okay, so the Seraphites, they broke the truce by lynching a bunch of WLF soldiers because those soldiers killed a bunch of kids because those kids were throwing rocks at the soldiers. Josh, up until this point, you had been trying to figure out where does the Israel and Palestine thing map on, and I got to be here again for you experiencing this dialogue that's like, this is Israel, this is Palestine.
Right.
And then again, just like, I just lost it at this part. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
But Josh, it could be about anything. Or anyone.
And
it could,
for me,
right?
Yeah, it probably hadn't been driven home until this point for me either. I was looking at, the Seraphites more in the way that they parallel cults. It's like, oh, this is sort of like early Mormon history as they're settling the West. Or it's like Jonestown in the way that it's like this sort of multi-ethnic, it was born out of the International District of Seattle, things like that.
Those are all things that you could do if you were interested in telling an original or interesting story. Yeah. But clearly that is not what Druckmann is trying to do.
Yeah, what about a group of people who all follow a prophet?
I mean, the way that I see it, this is just sort of framing up the way that I see this whole work, right? I think that what Druckmann is trying to do here is, in the first half, sort of set up what the individual cycle of revenge and violence is as he sees it. Right. And then in the second half, he's trying to draw a comparison between that and what he sees as the broader societal cycle of violence. And obviously the thing that is closest to his own personal experience that he can immediately draw on is the conflict between Israel and Palestine.
Yeah. As we're walking through this forward base, right, we also get a lot of dialogue of the soldiers around, just like hanging out. And Brian, you pointed up to me something very interesting about this dialogue because you stopped and listened to all of it.
They're not talking about anything. No one has like a side story going on. And so these people who are all standing around, it's all about the same thing. Oh, looks like the conflict's heating up. Oh boy, I'm sure. You don't even really have people talking about how hungry they are, although that kind of comes up. And it's like, I don't know what Isaac's going to be doing, but we're going to have to shoot a bunch of scars.
It just points to sort of a larger bankruptcy in terms of just ideas of what people do in this world other than violence, right? Like they save all of their imagination and creativity with all the different ways they can kill people.
Yeah.
But like,
that's a really, really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Like,
there's no fun in this world. Where's the fucking fun?
Well, playing with that dog was kind of fun.
Hey there, you are listening to a preview of a premium episode of The Worst of All Possible Worlds. If you'd like to listen to the rest of this, head on over to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/worstofall. And you can listen to not only the rest of this episode, but our entire backlog of premium episodes, bonus episodes, and if you subscribe at the $10 tier, you will get an extra episode of the podcast every single month. Again, that is patreon.com/worstofall. Hope to see you there.